Well, mate, thanks for coming on the show today. I know you're a very, very busy man, and you've been very hard to get a hold of lately, mate.
You're a podcaster, Josh.
Is that a bad thing?
No, I don't
You're a
know.
podcaster yourself.
Yeah, I do a podcast, but I'm not a podcaster.
Yeah. Well, mate, I've got to put food on
This
the
all
table.
looks very official. It's very good.
You like it? It's very
Yeah, I like
polished.
it.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was kind of my
very
vision.
nice.
It's coming to reality now, which is good. So
What made you get into this?
that's a very good question. I had no ambitions to get into the media or podcasting at all. But I think I've always had the knack to kind of, have a good conversation with people, and I've always been intrigued to hear about them, about their stories and whatnot. And I'm like, I got offered to do a podcast with Foxy, and I took on the opportunity where, again, had no ambition to do it, didn't know how it was going to turn out, how it was going to look, and people gravitated towards it, and I enjoyed it. I loved hearing about people's stories. I loved meeting new people, and it gave me another opportunity to kind of meet people from across the globe.
Who's the most famous person you've met?
You, mate, of course.
No, it's not. No. You're only saying that.
Well, Nicky Kyrgios was an interesting character. Jordan Mailata, the Philadelphia Eagles player. He has an amazing story. Obviously, just won the Super Bowl. Who else? Mark Bruce was an interesting person, very intellectually generous like yourself.
Mark's got his own big podcast. He does
Straight Talk. Yeah. He had Ivan on it as well. I watched that one not too long ago. And who else? And mate, the list goes on. Goes on. What about you, mate? What have you been up to?
Well, busy.
Like standard.
Doing the usual thing. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
No, I'm just working with the Bulldogs, working with Channel 9.
Yep.
Keeping the house going. That's all I'm doing.
What's happening with your eye? Have you fixed it?
Yeah, I got a new lens put in my eye. So
what's that mean?
Well, I couldn't see out of it for a start. Yeah. So
really?
when I was playing football when I was young, back in the 70s, I had 2 detached retinas in my right eye.
How did that happen?
And through trauma, through belts in the eye, and you get scar tissue. Some people are susceptible to it. I was susceptible to it.
Right.
So your retina is like a wallpaper on the back of your eye. That's where the vision starts. So scarring, and it tears down, and then where it tears down, you can't see. So I had 2. Both times they told me I would never play again. Went back and played both times. I had a very good doctor who allowed me to do that. So I've sort of had eye issues my whole life, and there was always, they always treated the other eye, and then got to the point where I couldn't see. I used to close my left eye to read. I used to close my left eye to watch the football because it was very blurry and that. So they were always making glasses for me, and the prescription would, 2 weeks later, it wouldn't work. I couldn't read, and I still couldn't do things. Couldn't see things properly on TV. Yeah. So I got onto this doctor who sent me to another doctor, to a specialist, and this guy went into operate. I didn't know how it would go, but virtually 2 hours later, when I opened my left eye, I could see everything crystal clear,
wow,
unbelievable, incredible. So I said, get the other one done. So I'm going in a month's time and get the other one done. But it's like a whole new world. It's incredible.
Well, you're always facing the camera. There's a lot of lights. Does it affect your vision at all?
No, I don't think that was it. It was more from the football back in the early days, but and the surgeries that I had at that time, But that was a long time ago now. So it's nearly 50 years ago now, and so it's all modern surgery now. And the lens that they put in, so he went in and he removed a cataract, and then he put a new lens in, which is the part that makes the vision in your eye. It's made by a 3D printer.
Wow.
Can you believe that? It's made by a 3D printer. So they measure your eye up with lasers and that, and then you're kind of conscious during the surgery, so they sedate you, but you can hear him talking to you all the time.
Oh.
Didn't feel anything.
It just sounds uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it was a bit uncomfortable for a few days, but as soon as I opened my eye, I went, wow, it was just different, and then, I can read, I can see, I can do everything, yeah.
Well, I'm very happy that it all went well, mate. So good, all the best with the other eye.
Well, the other eye will be the tricky one because that's always been the bad one,
exactly,
so I'll wait and see how that one goes.
You obviously coming on the show today, it made me think and reflect. I'm like, far out, it's been how many years since we first met? Do you remember the first time we met?
Yeah, it would have been at Penrith Park, upstairs in the old offices. You came in with your manager, who was Rick
Wade.
Rick Wade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he used to be the CEO of the Magpies back in the day, wasn't he?
Had a few jobs. He used to work in the media back in the old days.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So, and I'd sort of not known Rick, but I knew of Rick, and I'd met him a couple of times over the years. And I can't remember who exactly recommended you.
Was it Freddie?
Could have been Brad Fittler.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how Freddie saw me playing it. I don't know if it was at North Sydney Oval, but I was playing for the Bears, South's Reggie's side at the time. But I had this conversation with Brad, and I remember he saying to me, I think it was in City Camp, he's like, "You should thank me." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, I'm the one that told Gus about you."
Probably was Brad Fittler. And I went out to North Sydney Oval to watch you play.
Oh.
I snuck out there one day. You were playing for South. You're playing fullback,
Yes,
actually.
yes.
You're playing fullback.
All run, no pass.
And I went out and watched it, and then got on to your manager, and then you came out to Penrith and had a bit of a conversation, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't take me long to sign the dotted line.
Couldn't get the pen in your hand quick enough.
Well, I think for me, like, it was a good opportunity for me, obviously, like when a guy and a man like yourself kind of believed in me, that gave me another leg to stand on, but also I saw the club going a new direction. It was starting from the bottom up, and it was kind of like me where I saw myself in my career, because I didn't really... I went good in my under-20s at Souths, but I kind of just hit a wall at one point, and then when I met you, that all changed.
So, like most footballers, there's a place for you somewhere. Like you find your niche, you find your club, and you find the right timing. And, everyone's desperate to succeed early, but it doesn't work out like that. It takes time, it takes development, and takes opportunity and feeling comfortable in a place and comfortable with the coaching and comfortable with your teammates. And developing yourself. I mean, you think about the player you were the day you walked into us, and you played for Australia, you played State of Origin. I mean, I think we paid you $40,000 was your first contract. For $40,000, we bought a Test player and an Origin player. It's pretty good buying, isn't it?
Right. Well, saying that, I was coached well. Obviously, had your guidance as well. I just feel like it was a great time and great position for me. I was very lucky. And not only that, I feel like I always backed my game off hard work. And I remember day one of pre-season at Penrith. So, like, naturally as a player, you kind of like look at the team list, see who's in the squad, who you're up against. And, mate, that pre-season, I reckon we had like 50 players. Do you remember that in 2012?
We had a lot of players.
How do you get that to work?
That's where we were as a club.
Yeah.
But I remember to go and watch you play. And, like, people ask, what do you look for in a player when you go to watch them? And I went and watched them. And you can imagine a reserve grade game or out there at North Sydney Oval, there's hardly anyone there. So we can actually hear what's happening on the field. I could hear the communication, I could hear the talk. But the one thing I look for is competitive nature. They've got to have a competitive nature, and they've got to like the physicality. They've got to like the contact, because it doesn't matter how much talent you've got. If you don't like the collision, if you don't like collisions, this is not the sport for you. And ultimately, all the talent in the world won't get you there unless you're competitive, unless you actually enjoy the collision part of the game. And then there's other aspects about personality and character, and we get to know you and all that sort of thing. So I think what we noticed when we interviewed you was your passion for it, how much you loved it. And that's really important, because if you haven't got that passion and that love for it, you won't do the hard work. The hard work, they can't do it. It's not easy to become an NRL player. That's why such a small percentage of kids do it.
What is the percentage now?
Well, if you looked at a few years ago, when I was doing this, the Harold Matthews, which is used to be the under-16s representative team, was like 4% went through to get an NRL game. Wow. Which is a very low number.
I didn't play Harold Matthews or East Ball.
Yeah, well, a lot of fellas didn't. Yeah. A lot of fellas who got picked in those teams never made it. A lot of fellas who weren't good enough to get picked in those teams or didn't have the opportunity to get picked in those teams went on to be players. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no rule. There's no, there's no magic formula to work out whether or not a bloke is going to be an NRL player. But over time, you know what you're looking for, or at least you know the personality and the character that's probably going to survive the physical examination and everything else that goes along with it.
Yep.
And the rest comes down to hard work and learning the game, and talent obviously plays a part. You're a physical specimen and you like training and you can run but to be honest, when we bought you, we didn't see a Test footballer. That was all you. You did that.
Oh, I appreciate that, mate. Don't stop. Keep the compliments coming, mate. I'm not used to this at all. Yeah. But I was going to say, that was my next question. Like, when you're looking at a player, you obviously mentioned the physical side of things, but what about character? How important is character?
Yeah, it's important. We go out and look at a lot of kids. We scout a lot of kids, and we get a lot of kids tipped to us. I think all clubs have got to understand they've got to look extensively. We look throughout New Zealand, we look throughout Pacific Islands, we look throughout Queensland, New South Wales country, local junior leagues here. We're all looking for the same thing. We're all looking for the kids that are, physically look as though they could handle an NRL training and NRL playing. They've got talent, but primarily it comes down to their own attitude, their own aptitude, and their own competitiveness, and then personality and character also gives us an indication as to whether or not they'll be good team members, whether they'll put a team first mentality, and whether or not they will stay the course, whether they'll go through the grind to get there. And there are a hell of a lot of other sacrifices they've got to make. I often say this, that every year we interview the first crop of kids that comes into our system at around 15, 16 years of age, and we talk to them about the reality of becoming an NRL footballer, and that they should enjoy what they're doing right now. This might be the best team that you ever play with. I'm very honest with them about the percentage and the low percentage of kids that actually get through to the NRL level, but this is still a great level of football to be played at. It's a badge of honour to make these teams, and that they also need a plan B. That if they fail at rugby league or rugby league fails them, or things don't work out, they've got to have something to fall back on. And in those late teenage years, that's really important. For me, the education part of it was to use this time in the professional system to get yourself educated, finish school, go to tertiary education, get a trade, go to tech college, get a job, whatever it is. And so we had a rule: no work, no study, no play. If you weren't working or weren't studying, you didn't play, which may have compelled them to finish school or go back into education, or to at least go and get an apprenticeship or do whatever they wanted to do, so that they had a plan B when they came out of it. They might come here wanting to be an NRL player. I said, you'll leave with an education and hopefully a future in something else.
Speaking of plans, being a GM, obviously at Penrith for almost a decade, now the GM of the Bulldogs, is it almost the same plan you have coming to the Bulldogs now to what you did at Penrith?
No, a lot of it's basic. A lot of it's very, very similar, but they're two very, very different clubs, two different junior leagues, two different demographics and all that. I don't, it's... All the clubs are different, actually. Like the 17 NRL clubs that we've got are all differently owned and got different areas and different geographical bases and different demographics for the people that support them. And, the Bulldogs is a completely different sort of challenge to what Panthers was in the early days. But, at the end of the day, they're still NRL clubs. You've got to, and we're in the game of winning. We're in professional football and providing opportunity for people to come through. And, at the end of the day, you're judged on that scoreboard every weekend, and that's your ultimate goal. But there are so many other things you've got to get right in the organisation before that even becomes a possibility.
Well, being obviously GM of the Bulldogs comes with great expectation, right? You've got a massive fan base that demand results week in, week out. Did you feel that pressure coming into the club?
No, I think that's anywhere, Josh. I think that's any club you've ever been at. Everyone wants to win. Everyone knows that. There's always that pressure. Some are more high profile than others. Some get a lot more media than others, but... if you can't deal with that, you shouldn't be in the game anyway. The beauty for me was that I played and coached at the Bulldogs, and I played and coached at the Panthers, so I knew both very well, which is probably the reason why I accepted those two jobs in the first place, because I did know the clubs and I did know their history and I did know a lot of people in them before we even started. So whatever issues we thought were troubling them at the time, we felt could be solved and move on from there.
Switching gears a bit, I know you're a big social media influencer these days,
Far from it, Josh.
I don't know if you know this, but I actually stumbled across it not too long ago. There is a fan page about you on Instagram. Have you heard about it?
No.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Well, I just want to confirm, because I don't know if it's you or a fan page. So I actually got a couple of printouts.
Yeah.
So here's one, if you want to just have a look at that and maybe just read that. I don't know if you wrote that or not. Can you just read it out?
No. No.
Okay, that's not you.
No.
Was that you as well, coming from your account?
No.
And lucky last.
Who are these two dudes?
They're 1-4. They're a rap band from Mount Druitt.
Yeah, well, no, wasn't me. It's very funny.
I didn't think so.
They tell me there's about 300 impersonating social media accounts that impersonate me.
Mate, when I saw these, I had to have a giggle to myself, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring it today. I sort of see what you reckon.
Some of them say they're really funny. I like there's some of the blokes.
Hilarious,
yeah.
hilarious.
It's
you saw the first one, mate.
Well, I only ever got on Twitter when I first went to the Panthers. So they made me general manager. I'm not a general manager. I don't claim to be, and I've never ever thought of myself as one. But that was the job they wanted me to do at the time. And one of the things was social media. Looking at the club and where it was, they had about 5,000 members, and their average attendances were no good, and the sponsorship was down, and all these sorts of different metrics that they had. And I'm sort of looking at it, and social media presence. And the one thing that got me was this very small social media presence that Panthers had compared to some of the bigger clubs, particularly your Broncos and Roosters and
Souths.
Dragons and all those sort of sides, so it was kind of like, what's social media? What is this? Because I just had no idea. I didn't.
Well, pretty much it was just starting up when you first got to the Panthers.
So this is 2011.
Correct.
So I'm saying, well, why don't we have the membership, or why don't we have the attendances? Obviously, performance was a big thing, but and social media. We had no real social media team. We didn't even really have a full-time media team in those days. So it was kind of like, all right, well then we need to get on board with all of that. So I had to go and educate myself on that. And part of that was I started a Twitter account, this Twitter thing. Twitter, you had to have followers, so you had to do some things to get some followers and all that, and advertise and all that. So that's where I started with it, because Panthers didn't have one, and now they're one of the biggest. It's outstanding.
I always thought that was a strange one, because you're obviously a very busy man and you need to put a lot of time and effort into social media, and you're also opening yourself up to the fans, like direct line of questioning. Like, didn't you expose yourself a little bit that way?
In the early days, yeah. Like, it was kind of like I just sort of run forums all day and night, asking about the team, because, like, they don't get a lot of honesty from the general media. There's a lot of, agenda-driven stuff and a lot of misrepresentation in the general media. And your club fans can feel as though they're being left out of the dark, or they're being told, falsehoods, or they don't quite understand why decisions are made. So what I tried to do was grow the membership and build the relationship with our members through interaction, through engaging with them and speaking to them. And it really helped. You were able to... The immediacy of social media was that you were able to correct the mainstream media if they were getting it wrong, or if they were telling lies about you, or if, in fact, there were rumours around that weren't true, you could actually dispel that as well. And it sort of set us up that we weren't going to be pushed around and we weren't going to be mucked with, and the fans sort of liked that. We also had at that time, some elements of our fan base and our member base that weren't that productive for the club either. And so it was a part of sort of educating the membership, on what their expectations were and as members, and what we were expected of them as members. And I can remember the day when I took those black seats out. Remember the black hole members?
the dead, right? I was called.
They were a very loud and aggressive group. I took all their black seats, and the groundsman put them up in the grandstand with paw prints.
Oh, you remember this?
I posted the paw prints. I said, "How do you like my new paw prints?" Well, they all blew up deluxe because I got rid of the black hole.
That stand's not there anymore. It's obviously been knocked down. You mentioned like now being sort of in media, I kind of see a different side of it, and obviously you're there on a day-to-day basis. Speaking of agendas, one of your players who recently signed with the club, Lachlan Galvin, he's been, I reckon there's been not 1 week that I haven't heard his name in the media. How do you protect him?
Well, firstly, he's a very mature young man. Like, he's very unflappable, and as he explains, he kind of brought this on himself. Like, this is the change that he wanted to make. He owned it. He said it wasn't his manager. He said it wasn't anybody else. It was just how he felt about his football at the time and what he wanted to do. It was an opportunity for us that we decided to take up. He's a terrific young kid, loves his football, loves his training.
Looks it.
you know, Bulldogs are a high-profile place, and it's quite common that wherever I work, obviously gets a lot of negative publicity, and there are certain sections of the media that don't want us to succeed, and we have to deal with that. But, you know, I wear the brunt of that. It's protected from the rest of the club. They just get on with doing what they need to do. It's more in line, they're not worried about us failing. They don't want us to succeed. We understand that, but we'll deal with that in time. But so far as Lachlan Galvin's concerned, he's pretty much immune to all of that. I don't think that's going to faze him whatsoever, and hopefully in time his talent does the talking.
Touching on the Bulldogs, are you surprised that you've had this success in the short term already? Defining success, like you haven't won anything yet, but in terms of the ladder positioning, the way you guys have been winning games, tough, gritty.
We came off a very low base. So if you said to me in 2021, this is where we'd be today, I'd probably say, well, that's a bit ambitious, you know. But, you know, football's a funny game. Things can improve when you're doing things right. And right from day one, we've tried to do things right. It's hard when the Bulldogs went through 8 years of not making the 8, and they were down the bottom for 3 or 4 years there in a row, and a couple of, you know, wooden spoons. And it's not easy to come out of that. Exactly. We're at the back end of COVID too, which was difficult because, you know, development pathways had sort of been put into hibernation for a while, and they weren't really set up with that at the time either, and it wasn't a priority. So there were a number of things on a number of levels we had to rebuild. The one thing that we didn't have to worry about was the financial stability of the club and how well the club was managed, and which was very strong. You know, so that was a real asset to us at that stage. But it was a fairly ambitious program that we took. We virtually turned over our whole staff and our whole playing roster in 2 years. Now, I don't think people would be crazy enough to do that or to be able to get that done, but we did. We were kind of roundly criticised for that, but we weren't so much worried about the criticism, but there was obviously some pressure going forward as to whether or not we could improve and how quickly we could improve. But we recruited a lot of good people on character and personality, and people that we'd seen had been in good programs, and, you know, they were passionate about what they did. They loved what they did. And when you've got people like that, it's pretty easy. My job in these roles, as I see it, now, as I say, I still don't see myself as a general manager. I'm just a football person who's been around for a while. It's kind of getting the right people in the right jobs, supporting them to do those jobs, encouraging to do their jobs, you know, to the best of their ability, and just let the talent take over. And that's what's happened there. It's been a great turnaround for the Bulldogs, but we're nowhere near where we're going to be. This is a big club, and it's going to be a bigger club in time to come. And I'm glad the fans are enjoying the results in the short term. And that's hard with a development program when you're trying to turn a club around, because everyone sees the long-term plan, but everyone wants to win this week.
Exactly.
You know, so there's a short-term need and there is a longer-term plan, and we're still very much committed to our longer-term plan. And it's great we've got these results, and we've got it because we've got good people in the organisation. We've got great staff, great coaches. The players that we've brought have been terrific. These players that we've brought to our club are really genuine, passionate people, and they've come together as a group, and they're doing great things, which is wonderful. But it's also going to help us hopefully develop our pathways further into the future. And I think any professional football club in this country has got to develop their own, at least have that conveyor belt of young talent coming through. We're not there yet. We've got some good results out of it. We want to get bigger and better with that, and that puts a lot of pressure on recruitment, talent scouting, and we haven't got a big junior league, so we have to go far and wide to find our talent. It's not on our doorstep, so that's a lot of work and a lot of travel, a lot of time away from home for our staff, and then getting kids to relocate and getting families to trust us with their development. And the competition for these things is very, very fierce, and if it's not happening quickly at one club, they want to move them to another club. So, but you know, we're pretty experienced in that space.
Speaking of like getting the right people in the club, you know, Lachlan obviously was available. The opportunity was there. Why is he the right person to lead the club to premiership glory?
Well, I don't think we've brought him in with that expectation. He's a talented player, and I think that at 19 years of age, when he first came into first grade, it was one of the first things I noticed was his competitive nature, his skill set, and how confident he was for a teenager. Now, I've said on a number of occasions that he's the best, if not one of the best teenagers that I've seen come in initially and give the impact that he did. That guarantees you nothing to be a talented teenager. I've seen plenty of talented teenagers that didn't go on to make it for whatever reasons, through their own lack of commitment or through overconfidence, getting too much money too early, or being in the wrong system, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the opportunity to get Lachlan Galvin was one that was too good to pass up, and so we've gone down that road, and we've signed him for 3.5 years, not 3.5 weeks.
Congratulations.
We'll take our time with him and go from there. But he's a very dedicated young man and extremely talented, but he's still got a long way to go.
I agree. When you were in the process of appointing a new head coach, was Cameron always the top of your list?
Well, to be honest, when I came into this job, I thought that Trent Barrett would be a long-term coach anyway, because I'd always had a good opinion of Trent and a good relationship with him. And he probably came to the Bulldogs at the wrong time. Trent gets a bit over-ambitious and he gets a bit impatient, and he'd already been to Manly, and he started with us at Panthers, if you remember, and he took the Manly job, and I'd kind of thought, well, that's a bit early.
I remember having this discussion with you.
It didn't work out too good for him, and then he went back to Panthers, and then he signed up to come to the Bulldogs, and that was a tough ask for a young coach again to come to the Bulldogs where they were at that particular time. So a lot of pressure on him, and in the end, he resigned early in 2022.
21 or 22? 21.
22, yeah. So, that wasn't on the plan. So when I first came here, getting a head coach was the last thing on my mind. Yeah, so, and one of the parts is building the club and building the support system around him, best practice in high performance, best practice in medical, best practice in recruitment and development, and that's where your club goes, and best practice in coaching, and to make sure you had the right people around him. Well, there was a lot of pressure here, and as you say, it's a big club, and there was a lot of expectation and a lot of media pressure, and Trent decided to take a step away from that from a while. He's doing really, really well now as an assistant coach up at the Broncos, and that's probably his niche for this part of his life where it goes. But all of a sudden we didn't have a head coach, so I went and grabbed an old mate, Mick Potter, who's former Bulldog great, just to step into the interim role, which was a perfect sort of personality for what we had at the time. And Mick's a very easygoing bloke. He knows the game, and he did a great job for us. And I honestly, I would have kept going with him for another 12 months until we got to the point where I thought, well, now we need to go and get a head coach, And it wasn't until I saw some media reports that Cameron was thinking of leaving the Panthers, and that he'd had a couple of offers naturally because they were winning premierships, and he was a talented young man. And there were a couple of clubs that were sort of chasing him, and I'd heard he'd been off for a couple of interviews, and I just sent him a note. I said, listen, if you're ever going to leave Panthers,
you let me know.
Come and talk to us, because we'll be bigger than all those, and which, was hard to brag about at the time because we weren't going all that well, but I had tremendous trust in the club and where we were going. And so, and obviously I knew Cameron, I'd employed Cameron at Panthers, so he came and had a talk to me, and I said, look, this is where we are, but this is what's happening, and this is what we're putting in place, and this is where we're going to get to, et cetera, et cetera. And we had a number of meetings, a number of secret meetings that no one ever knew about, just talking along the lines. And so he ended up knocking back the other approaches that he'd had from other clubs and sat and thought about it a little bit. And then he came to me and he said, I think I like the sound of the Bulldogs. I think I'll come to the Bulldogs. And I actually said to him, I said, wait another 12 months, win another comp at Penrith, and then hopefully we're ready for you to come in and take over. He said, no, I'll come now. Which I said, mate, that's going to be, no. He said, I'll get into the fight with you. He said, if we're going to do this, we'll do it together and we'll get into the fight, so... which is pretty brave from a bloke taking on his first NRL appointment. And I've often say to coaches, young coaches, when you just don't take the first job that comes along, don't take the job on that's, it's hard enough going from being an assistant coach somewhere into being a head coach role. That's a hard enough transition without doing it somewhere that's not set up properly for you, or there's too much work for you to do. You haven't got the support system around you. So, he decided to come, and it was always going to be tough that year because that was the year where, I mean, when I got here, we were running last, and I said to the board, well, we're going to have to go backwards to go forwards. And they said, well, how far backwards can we go? We're running last. And that was a tough year for him. It shouldn't have been as tough as it was because we had a lot of injuries and a lot of issues, but the thing I admired most about him was that he didn't compromise his values. He didn't compromise what he wanted. You know, I think sometimes coaches will compromise just to be popular, just to get along with the media or to get along with their playing group. He set the standards right from the start of what he wanted and what he wouldn't tolerate. And, you know, they put some noses out of joint. I'm not going to say it didn't, but I admired him for that because he really stuck by his beliefs. And you've seen the results now, like a couple of years later, they are where they are. And he's done a great job. He's got great staff. And, you know, we've got great people working in the organisation, very happy where all that's got to. We've now got an NRLW team that's in the competition.
Congratulations,
so
well
we're
done.
growing. Yeah, but, you know, pathways is my passion, producing a steady stream of young talent coming through. We've already done that. The likes of Bailey Haywoods and Harry Hayeses and Jack Dodds and these sort of players have graduated out of the system into the top grade, Lipoy, Hopboy. You know, but we need half a dozen of those every year to be poking their nose through and trying to push up into NRL. So we need to get bigger and better at our recruitment and our development processes. And it's not easy because it's asking people to move away from their home and come to live with us here in Belmore is not easy. And we've got 3 player houses in Belmore, one with house parenting and about 12 there, and then a couple where the boys live on their own. And
Wow.
yeah, it's you're coming into the city here. You're not
Big smoke.
Yeah, well, Penrith was easier because there's still cows and horses out there.
Exactly.
Nice open spaces. You know, it's not so big down here.
It's changed a lot, Penrith. I don't know if you've been out there lately, but I want to talk about you. What drew you to rugby league?
What drew me to rugby league?
Correct.
I don't know. That's a hard question to answer. I just support. I loved it from a very early age.
Who was your team?
My dad's team was Newdown. Dad was a policeman. He worked at Newdown Police Force. And when he worked in the police force, he worked with a number of first-grade footballers from the Newdown Blue Bags, they were called in those days. One of them was a prominent footballer by the name of Chicka Moore, who went on a kangaroo tour in 1967. Very prominent. Chicka would come to our house a couple of nights a week and have dinner. And
Wow.
we lived in a little one-man police station down at Tempe on the Princess Island. It's still there. It's not a one-man police station anymore, but it's still got the jail cell. They had 2 jail cells there.
Really?
So they'd go out and work and they'd lock up a couple of drunks and bring them home at night. And there was always a raucous going on in the back out in the jail cells out there. So, well, they were funny times. But and Dad used to go and watch Newdown play on the weekends. He'd go to watch Chicka play and I'd go along with him. So that's where I sort of found my love. And it's once you go there and you see the colours and you hear the crowd and you see the collisions and all that. If that's what you want to do, it's in you, that's what you'll do. So Mum was dead set against rugby league. I played soccer till I was 12 or 13 because she thought that was safer for me. But I was the kid who took a football to soccer training and had all the kids playing touch football before the soccer coach turned up. So in the end he said, mate, footy's up the road. You need to go up the road.
A lot of people look up to you and look up to you with inspiration. Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? My hero was my dad. That was, I didn't need much more inspiration than that. But I take inspiration and motivation from a lot of things, from a lot of different things. It's not one thing I can put my finger on, but the inspiration I have is that I love what I do. I love the game and I love working in the game. I love the people in the game and the people that it attracts. I love the demographic of our fan bases. I love who these people are and how important football is to them. And I love the opportunity this game gives to young men. I often say some of our greatest success stories are fellas that didn't play NRL or certainly didn't play NRL regular or weren't stars, that football was very important for their development, coming into this system and being part of a team and being part of a professional program. For a lot of them, it's life-changing, if not life-saving, given where they'd come from in their own, early years. So I like what this game can do for people. I like the opportunity it gives people. There are a lot of things about this game that still need to be worked on and improved, and there's a lot of disappointment in our game as well, and there's a lot of disappointing people in our game. But overall, the overriding part of this is good, honest people who love the game, and I just like to be in that. It's all I've known. It's all I've done.
I was going to ask you, you've dedicated your whole life to rugby league. Have you ever
Well, I didn't. That wasn't the plan. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never had a plan in my life. I've never planned my life.
Really? I'll take you to be someone that's very organised, plans things, no?
No, I'm organised through my work, or I know where I'm going with my work, but I'm not. Personally, it's kind of just bowl along from one thing to the other. If you'd have said to me in the 70s that I'd be playing first grade football in the 80s, I'd have laughed at you, and instead if you'd have told me I was going to be a first grade coach, I'd have laughed at you. Like, it's just sort of bowled along from one job to the next, and that's how my career's taken on, so that here I am, I'm in my 50th year, and didn't plan a day of it. I've never that was never my goal. I went to university to be an accountant or a lawyer or whatever it was. But that's like when you were younger, you got an education, you got a job, and you worked for a living.
Yes.
That's all we knew. Football was not a career.
It was just a little side.
It was the best second job in the world. The first year I played, I didn't know you got paid for it. They gave me a cheque at the end of the year. I said, "What's that for?" They said, "For your football money." I said, "What for?" I said, "For playing football." I said, "You get paid for this?" They said, "Yeah." It was $370 or something for a season of under 23s.
What do you miss about your playing days? Like, I obviously played for 4 great clubs, Penrith, Canterbury, South, Newtown.
At the end of the day, we're all footballers. That's what we are. That's
Yes.
what drew us to this game, is
Yes.
playing the game, enjoying it with your mates. And, to play football at this level, you have to be bent a certain way, and you have to be, that's what excited us. We love playing the football. And I tell people, if I could be 24 again for an hour, I'd spend the whole hour playing football.
Yeah.
That's just, you loved it. Whether you were good at it or not good at it or average at it or what have you, it's, there was always someone bigger, stronger, faster, more skillful. But that was the competitive part of it, to be accepted by those people, and just loved it. And when I first started, it was very, very, very much, you couldn't even call it semi-professional. It wasn't professional.
Brutality.
It was a second job.
Yeah.
But it was brutal.
It was very brutal.
It was vicious and it was brutal, and was kind of a badge of honour to survive it. And that cleaned up very quickly over a period of time, and for the better.
Are we too clean right now?
Oh, we overreact to so much, Josh. Don't start me.
Please.
We overreact to so much.
But it's it's unscripted, but I had this in my mind.
We overreact so much. It's...
But where does it stem from? Does it stem from the refs, or does it stem from above?
I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of...
Because they say they don't react, but it's pretty obvious that they do react.
Majorly react.
Yeah.
It's hugely reactionary,
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff, and it's very frustrating. I think our players and coaches do a wonderful job to keep putting on the product that they do, despite the issues that we have with officialdom and the game itself. So it's and they think they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing the best thing or what have you, but...
Do you think we're trying to make the game too inclusive? Like, end of the day, I don't believe that the game should be tailored to every single person. Do you think we're trying to make it too inclusive?
I've often said that, we tend to worry more about the people that don't watch our game and don't love our game at the expense of those that do watch it and do love it.
Yeah.
It's always, why can't we get them watching too? Well, they don't like our game, they like another game or what have you. It's kind of like, and, we've sanitised our game a hell of a lot over the years. The reason for that, I suppose, is best known for themselves. I suppose, in some respects, all the literature that's been written around concussion and those sorts of things has them worried about litigation and those sorts of things as well, player welfare. But, we play the professional code.
You know what you're saying?
It's up to parents and junior league coaches to educate kids about what's right or wrong.
You're speaking on junior league. There's no competition points up until the age of 12, correct?
Yeah.
Why?
Because of parents.
Why? Because of parents.
Because the
Too
most
passionate, too emotional.
Yeah, because the biggest turn off for junior sport is antisocial behaviour on the sidelines at sporting events. We went through this, and I first got hand of this in the Penrith Junior League out there, and it goes in all junior leagues, goes in all sports too. But the biggest turn off for parents, particularly new parents, and particularly parents whose kids were getting into sport for the first time at a very young age, was the behaviour and the tension on the sidelines at junior sporting events. And I'm not sure if you were there. If you remember, we went round and put CCTV vision in all the junior league grounds in the Penrith Junior League, and we had a mobile security team, Sammy Shamoon with E-Group, ran mobile, and it helped a lot in that respect, but it was still one of the biggest things. And the biggest thing is about parents is they can't handle the result. The kids can handle the result.
I agree.
The kids can handle the refereeing. The parents can't, And then what they would see from the referees and everything on Friday night football and replays and bunkers and all this sort of. I would have people standing outside the junior league office on Monday morning with iPads and iPhones showing me things that the referee missed.
That's what kills me.
And what was I going to do about it?
Yeah.
Like it's just ridiculous. Like the professional game should come with a warning. Don't try this at home. This is the professional code, all right? All the rules down here that we should have for junior league and making it safe and safe for kids to play. And we don't want kids to get discouraged by it. We don't want kids to get hurt. But, at the end of the day...
Do you agree with it? Because shouldn't kids know the difference between winning and losing? Shouldn't they know the struggles of losing and trying to get back on their feet?
That's one philosophy. I don't think the kids really care that much. Okay. I've got to be honest. I don't think, particularly up to that age. No, I'm not so much against the anti-competitive nature of it up until that age. It should be about participation and enjoyment. And kids at that age are overcoached and they're over. You get parents, coaches, stacking teams and pulling kids out, telling the kids out of other teams to have a team that wins the comp. I mean, there was too much of that. There is too much of that. It's not healthy and it's not good for junior sport and it's not good for the kids. And that's as much a turn-off to anything. Yeah. Coaching and anti-social behaviour on the sidelines are the two biggest turn-offs for junior sport, and that's what we have to do. And having it non-competitive is one deterrent that you can have to make that easier for the kids. We want them kids to grow up to be supporters of the game. Every year in the Penrith Junior League, for example, we'd have 1,500 kids sign up for their first ever game in rugby league. And I used to say to our people, they're not going to be NRL players. Maybe one every 3 or 4 years might come through and be an NRL player, but there's 1,500 potential fans. Their first experience in our game is going to be crucial as to whether or not they follow this game, support this game. They might end up being doctors, they might end up being lawyers, they might end up being sponsors or coaches, they might be life members or what have you like that. So there's a chance to bring new people into the game and enjoy that first experience. And kids did enjoy that first experience. But the rules didn't allow for that. I wanted to set up Saturday morning academies where, and I'd seen this work in soccer around the world, where they didn't have competitive junior sport. They had academies where you went to learn and play the game. And on the weekend, you still went to your academy and learned to play the game. And it was silent Saturday. The parents couldn't speak. The parents couldn't come and watch training during the week, and they could come to training on the weekends, but they couldn't speak. They couldn't yell out, and there was no game anyway. It was still just drills and skills and learning to play the game, and that was for the enjoyment of the kids. And I had this idea that if mum and dad could drop the kids off at 9 o'clock in the morning and not have to find parking and not have to deal with other people on the sidelines and run off and get their hair done or do their shopping or go and mow the lawns or whatever and come back in 2 hours, and little Johnny has scored a try, kicked a goal, passed the ball, tackled a tackle bag, got a hot dog, got a free T-shirt and enjoyed himself with his mates, that's a great experience. And that's what I wanted to run in those areas. And, we did a lot of that sort of stuff. We used to have the clinics for the kids and go around to the junior league
You're
clubs.
big on that, I remember that.
It was always about growing participation and growing enjoyment and having kids enjoy their first ever experience. Now, I saw a lot of kids sign up to play in the under-6s as their first ever experience. And mum would buy them the shin pads and the shoulder pads and the headgear and the mouth guard. And, poor little Timmy has never played. He's only playing because his mates at school played or he saw it on TV. And he'd go out and, and he wasn't very good. And And the way they had to do it, the halfback had to catch the ball and give him
Yep.
the best. And the best player in the other team knew who was getting it. He'd knock little Timmy over, and that would be it. That would be little Timmy's day in sport. And I'd say, well, how long is Timmy going to put up with that?
You never know.
How long is mum and dad going to put up with that?
Exactly.
They're not.
Yeah.
And if the coach is yelling out instructions and it's all about the winning, and if the other team's too good and beats them by 50 every Saturday morning, how often are they going to keep turning up? They can't get a car park at the junior league ground, and they've got to put up with these other people screaming on the sidelines. And
Well, when you put it that way.
yeah, and little Timmy doesn't enjoy his experience. You know, I'm not talking about the NRL player. The NRL player finds us. We don't have to find the NRL player. He finds us, right? But how do I get that kid to enjoy his first experiences in rugby league, which is why we ran a lot of those clinics, why we had a lot of those signing days, and we had a lot of those things, players going out to schools and adopt a school, and we had the Panthers on the Prowl system and all that sort of thing. So it was about engaging with the public and making their experience through rugby league enjoyable for the first time. So if your kid wanted to learn how to play rugby league, come to the academy Saturday morning. Don't join up. Come to the academy Saturday morning. All right, you come along, we'll run drills and skills. You'll learn to play this, you'll learn to play that, you'll learn to kick, you'll learn to pass, you'll learn to catch. You know, you'll learn to tackle a tackling bag. You're not going to get hurt. I'll give you a T-shirt. I'll give you a hot dog and an emblem and a badge. And he goes home all happy. Mum's happy. She's gone off and done the shopping and got her hair done or what have you. She hasn't to put up with the crowds. That's a great experience. And that kid grows up loving the game, and then you give them free tickets, you bring them to the football, they get to hear the crowd and all that. Are they going to be NRL players? No. The percentage is so small.
Yeah.
We're not out there looking for participation to grow NRL players. Participation is about growing a love for the game and growing up wanting to be a part of the game.
Developing that over time.
Those kids that come in there, I still want them to be coming to the club when they're 94 years of age, playing bingo out with the with the people out in the spare room. It was cradle to the grave mentality, and that's how you should be running. We should be running our football. But the attraction to all that and what drives all that is the professional game.
Exactly.
Stop mucking around with the professional game, because that's
That can attract or deter.
Well, you know, you put on TV and and you'll see those really physical and brutal games and all that sort of thing, and a lot of people are turned off it by, it's too dangerous or it's too hard or what have you. There's some kid sitting in a lounge room whose eyes are fixed on that screen saying, "That's me. I want to be in that." They're the ones.
Yeah.
That's you. You sit there and watch that and you go, "That's me. That's what I want to do." That's a very, very small percentage of kids who pull on the boot to play the game. There is an enjoyment factor, a leisure factor, a recreational factor. We've got touch, we've got tag, we've got recreational forms of the game, we've got junior league sport and all that sort of thing. Govern all that, make that enjoyable and what have you, make it safe and what have you. Professional game, get it out of our bloody way.
Leave it alone.
That's what it is.
You mentioned before about not having a plan. Obviously, it came to a point where your playing days were over. Did you always plan to be a coach after that?
No.
And how did that fall into place?
Good question. So I had 3 years here at the Bulldogs, and then by the end of 1985, we had a very good side. We won the comp in 84 and 85, and I'd had 3 bad injuries. I'd had a fractured neck, and I'd had a broken leg, and I'd had a detached retina, and I played my fair share of first grade, but by the end of 85, we had a premiership winning team, and if everyone was fit and well, I probably didn't make the side. So I went off and had a year at South Sydney, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I loved it. Met a bloke called George Piggins, and a very talented young group of players who all went on to do great things, and they were very young when I got there, and we had a great year. We were just a couple of points out of being minor premiers, and at the end of that year I gave playing away, and Bulldogs offered me a job back here coaching the reserve grade the following year. So I had 3 years here at the Bulldogs, went over to South and had 1 year. George was very, very complimentary publicly with sort of the role and the contribution I made there, and that Barry Nelson, who was the chairman here at the Bulldogs, wanted me to come back, and I come back and coach the reserve grade in 87. Through just fate, I ended up coaching the first grade in 88. So that wasn't planned. That's just how it happened.
And not too long after, you've gone back to Penrith.
A couple of years later, back to Penrith. Yeah.
2 grand finals. What do you remember about that grand final winning side?
Yeah, magical times. You know, like the Penrith I first went to in 1976. I mean, we were a struggling young club, and you know, as a young club coming in, we had our struggles, and to come back to the club all those years later as the head coach, and firstly go to a grand final, their first ever grand final in 1990, and then the first ever premiership in '91, and Penrith will knock up winning comps for a long period of time, but there's only ever one first time, and it was a great thing to be a part of. And the good thing was there was still a lot of mates there that I had around that time. And, all the fellas that were there are sort of in the 60s and 70s that went through all those struggles. There's a good unity amongst them blokes that are very proud of where the club is today and what it's doing.
Well, you've got a perspective of being a player, coach, GM. Obviously, you've built clubs from the ground up and you've been credited for doing that for a number of years. What does it take to build a premiership winning team, club?
Well,
there's many things, I guess, but what are the main pillars?
Yeah, people look at it as trying to win, premierships. That's what you're trying to do. I mean, that's not what you set out to do. I look to build a club, not a team. I think that the team emerges from the club, if that's right. You need to build. There are many basics to the running of a professional football club and what you're going to need. And I said them earlier. Now, best practice in coaching, best practice in high performance, best practice in medical, best practice in education and welfare, best practice in recruitment and development. I need the people that have got expertise in those areas and that they're good people and can work together as a team and work together as a group, that can put the club first and put the team first. Recruiting talent, well, everyone recruits talent. We all go out and try to find players that can do it, but then building a culture within your club, what I call the DNA of your club, what your club stands for, what it means to be a Panther, what it means to be a Bulldog, what it means to be a Rooster, whatever it means to be your club, what sets you apart from others, and having people that'll buy into that and live it every day is really important. And then hopefully down the track, success comes from that. And I think it will, if you build it properly and you put the right people in the right jobs and you do a good job in attracting and developing your talent, then you will win and you will be competitive. And, winning comps, that's another thing again. That just takes a special time of chemistry amongst a group of blokes at the right stage of their career, and they'll win you a comp. And if you stay in this long enough and you keep doing it right, you'll get your chances to win comps down the track. The team will emerge from the club. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a club to raise a footballer. That's how I see it. And the premiership winning team or the premiership winning opportunities will come if you're doing everything right from the ground up. So I tried to build it up from the ground up, put the right people in the right jobs, and let nature take its course.
Like we're seeing with Penrith right now.
Well, nature takes its course, and you've got to keep watering it. You've got to keep nurturing it. You've got to keep, it's not a destination. Success is not a destination. It's a journey. It's something you've got to keep doing. You've got to keep working at it.
Talking about developing players, how important is patience with them as well, compared to being attracted to experienced players and then bringing them into the club?
Huge. Well, it comes down to whether or not your coaches or your organisation wants immediate results, short-term fixes, or whether or not they're to go the test of time. Developing players there are people that are really good at it. There are coaches that are really good at it that don't want to be NRL coaches. There are talent scouts out there that have got a really good eye for talent. They can look at a 15 and 16-year-old kid and tell you what they're going to look like at 21, 22. Wow. And that's a real talent. They've got an eye for that. I think we have a very good idea of what won't make it, and that cuts down a lot of time and saves people a lot of grief. But the rest of it there's a fair bit of luck in it and hard work, and there's no guarantees in our game. No guarantees whatsoever. A champion teenage player isn't necessarily going to be a good NRL player or even a regular NRL player. Kids, you're looking for those diamonds in the roughs, those teenagers that probably have been overlooked or didn't stand out on talent, but they've got that constitution, they've got that work ethic, they've got that perseverance. They're willing to do the hard work to get you where you want to be, and you know what sort of footballer they're going to be if they're given the opportunity, and that's what our game can do. So developing a player, I tried to build a club where there's a level of football for everyone. There's your NRL level, then there's your reserve grade, your New South Wales Cup level, and there's a Ron Massey Cup level, which is a little bit below that, but it's better than A grade playing in the park, and there's better referees and better judiciary. The players are safer there. Then there's the tried and tested junior representative programs, your Jersey Flag and your SG Ball and your Harold Matts. In between those, there's transition years and there's other levels of development football that we could play. Like, we're constantly playing development games and bringing kids in just to keep them in the system. They mightn't be able to make the SG ball team this year. They mightn't be able to make the Jersey flag. And the hardest part is explaining to managers and parents, that's okay. Don't give up just because you can't make those teams, or just because you're not getting picked in those teams doesn't mean that your son,
I'm glad you said that.
Your son's not getting what he wants, because the game is littered with players that didn't make those teams. They didn't play for the Australian schoolboys. They never got picked for the school team. They weren't in the first team. They never got picked in the junior rep sides, but they weren't physically or mentally ready for it. But the passion and the desire and the love of it and the work ethic was.
Never wavered.
And they're the little diamonds in the rough that we're constantly looking for. Any kid can see the talent. Any kid can see talented kids. Like, someone said to me, "Oh, you discovered Brad Fittler." I said, "Well, it's like discovering the Blue Mountains. Someone would have seen it eventually." Like, those kids find you. The champion players find the game. Everyone can see them. But I maintain that 90% of us that played first grade football are average. It's just some that worked harder than others, persevered longer than others, stayed at it longer than others, had luck with injury, didn't get bad injuries, personal circumstances, their home life, their family life, their opportunity, their education, other demands on outside their life. There are a lot of things that get in the way of players succeeding. We try to accommodate all those. Professional football clubs these days used to be football club. You turn up Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday morning and train. We'd have a gym and we had tackle bags. We teach you how to play. Excuse me. Now we're hospitals and we're medical centres and we're educations and we're education and welfare and we're careers and we're financiers, we're accountants. The clubs are so big now, looking after the players and giving them everything they need to succeed. And if you do that, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a club to raise a footballer. And hopefully that footballer then comes through, appreciates what he does and stays with you long term. And there'll always be changes to your roster. There'll always be reasons to let a player go and bring another player in and manage the salary cap. And that's one of the restrictions on the game that is really hard to manage. It punishes success. It doesn't reward development. It doesn't reward consistency. But they're the challenges we have in our game.
What about the challenges of being a club coach compared to an Origin coach? Like, what comparisons do you need to have? It's a different game.
Yeah, look, I think coaches are coaches. Coaches are coaches. In the modern day, we've sort of morphed Origin coaching into ex-players who played Origin, or they were good players and they come into the Origin arena. But I still think it's a job for professional coaches, people that do it all day, every day and are very good at it. But that's a whole different argument. But coaching Origin was completely different to coaching Clubland. Having said that, you still had to be smart with the X's and O's. You still had to know the games. You still had to know the way that referees were refereeing at the particular time. You still had to know the strengths and weaknesses of your opposition. You still had to formulate a game plan in a short space of time with players that play against each other on a weekly basis, come together for 8 days to get ready to go off and play, in a representative team. Mind you, you're working with the most talented players. You can do more in a week than you can do in 3 months in Clubland. It's a great, great test, and it's a great environment to be in, and you've been in it, and you can see why people gravitate back towards it, because it is at the very elite level that our game has to offer. And the attention it gets and the popularity of it and the scrutiny that it gets is a challenge. It's inspiring. It's something you want to prove yourself in that environment. So the coaching, well, that's day in, day out, year in, year out, year after year, off-season after off-season, training session after training session, developing the DNA of your club and bringing young fellas through to first grade, and losing players at the top end and bringing players in at the younger end, and maybe you can pick up a player here or there, and trying to organise your roster. It's very, very hard.
The reason I wanted to ask you is you obviously heard the slogan, you can't coach Origin. So what kind of style of Origin coach were you? Were you more like a man manager, were you a tactical coach? What made you so successful in that arena?
Players made me successful. Picking the right players for the job is one thing. But I tried when I first went in. I didn't play representative football, so it was an environment that I wasn't used to. But when I first went in, I wanted to make it special for the players. I wanted to make it something different to the native experienced at clubland. I wanted to make it something they'd look forward to coming into camp and look forward to playing. And my first experience was New South Wales, sort of 92 through to 94. We were the first team to win 3 series in a row. And at the end of it, I remember our captain, Laurie Daly, saying, I said, these blokes are closer than any club side I've ever been. And they still are mates today, you know, because they achieved something really special. So my thing was about making the environment special, making the occasion special, preparing them for the rival that they had, which was Queensland, having them understand what motivated Queensland and why they did what they did and why they played the way they did. And then if we didn't understand that, we couldn't beat it, but we just had to do it better than them. And every now and then New South Wales gets it right, and every now and then we've got too much talent. But the majority of the time, Queensland always get it right. And they're very, very hard.
How did we get it wrong this last?
We get it wrong a lot.
What is it? What is it? Complacency? Is it overconfidence? Like what is it? What gave it? I feel like game 1, if you want to call it that, we had our best game, and then we
this
just
year
got
series,
worse. Yeah, just bizarre.
Yeah,
one that we rooted. It was just a missed opportunity.
It's probably raw for all those that are involved, but you could see as the series was going on, Queensland were getting better, and we were kind of weren't, and it culminated in that very poor first half in game 3. I don't know what they were doing in camp. I don't know what their goals were. Look, there is the emotional side of it and the history side of it and the motivational side of it and the connectivity side of it and getting people together to fight for a common cause. There's also the X's and O's. You've got to have a strategy and you've got to know the game and you've got to know what you're up against. But at the core of it all, and it's the saying we have at the Bulldogs and the saying wherever I go, you know, you've got to get the basics right.
Yeah.
You've got to get the basics and understand what the basics are, and understand how important the basics are. And Queensland did all the basics right. They made that their priority.
They nailed the moments, the big moments. Australian coach is vacant. Who do you believe is going to be the next one?
I don't know.
Did Freddie turn it down?
Brad turned it down, yeah.
Who would you like to see?
I don't really care who does it, to be honest.
Cameron Smith has obviously been touted to be...
Well, again, that's going to an ex-player that doesn't coach, you know, but he's had experience playing with rep sides, obviously. You know, I'd like to see the people who make their living being coaches as coaching the rep sides. I think it's a reward for what they are. You know, I don't necessarily agree with just giving these rep coach jobs to players because they played at that level. And, you know, they can do it and they've shown they can do it, but is that really best for the team and for the product and the development of the player? I don't know. I think the professional coaches would do a better job. Madge Maguire came in last year, had 1 year. He's a professional coach. That's what he does for a living. Had a great series and won the series. I don't know why it ended that you couldn't be a club coach and a rep coach at the same time. I did it both ways. I did it as a club coach and I did it as... Well, I was coaching director at the Roosters, so I still had a club job. But to be honest, I found it easier when I was coaching a club to coach a rep team at the same time. I think Wayne Bennett would tell you the same thing. I think, I think the reward should go to the best coaches of the day.
Makes sense. How did you become a GM of the Roosters? How did that come about?
What?
Were you the GM of the Roosters, or you took on an administrative role?
I was coaching director. They made a title up for me. So I coached the Roosters sort of I coached the Roosters sort of 95 through to 99, then I gave it away. And a couple of years later, Nick come back and asked me if I'd come back and coach. And I said, no. I just started in the media, and I always thought I'd go back to coaching, but I never did. And he said, well, if we get a young coach, would you assist them? Would you mentor them, you know? And he'd come up with this title, coaching director. So we went and got a young bloke called Ricky Stewart.
Yep.
And we got some other coaches, Dean Pay, John Cartwright.
Wow.
Ivan Cleary, Shane Flanagan. So they were all coaches that were just starting out in their careers, and they came to the Roosters, and we had a coaching staff there, and I oversaw the coaches. And
wow.
Between the lot of us, we coached all 3 grades. We went to 3 NRL grand finals, and by the 3rd year we went there on all 3 grades. We won the 2 lower grades and got beat the top grade by 3 points by the Bulldogs. So it was a great system. So I was a coaching director. So my job was to mentor the young coaches when they were first starting out. And they all went on to be NRL coaches and successful in their own right.
Being the GM of the Panthers, how do you reflect back on that?
Oh, great. Yeah, great. It's because that was my junior league club. That was the club that first gave me an opportunity as a player. And obviously being a coach there as well. So, and there were still people involved in the club that were back there in those days, when I arrived at the club. And Jimmy Jones, our talent scout, I played with Jimmy back in the 80s, and Royce and all those fellas. So, yeah, Penrith's a big family. Like, you've seen Penrith. It's a big community, and it's a great community. And the Penrith club itself is a big family. And, they were great. It was hard in the early days, but there was a lot that needed to be fixed away from the football that was affecting the football. So there was a lot of work behind the scenes that probably people didn't see and the players didn't see that we were constantly working on to get the club to where it needed to be. And it culminated in the building of the academy and the facilities and everything we had out there, and giving themselves every opportunity. And they're built into a powerhouse now, haven't they?
Big time. How do you separate your emotion from making the right decision, being a general manager?
Well, the easy decision is never the right decision. The easy decision is what needed to be done. You have a responsibility to everybody to make the right decision at the right time, even if it's a hard decision. And some decisions are extremely hard, but that's why you put in these leadership roles. That's what your job is, to make those hard calls. You need to show compassion, and you need to have understanding, and I try to put myself in the player's position as much as possible. And that will influence some of the decisions that I make and some of the things that I do. I'm about providing opportunity and giving kids an opportunity. Pride myself on giving opportunity to as many as possible, both in the working environment, in the coaching and the administration and the high performance areas and all that. When I first went to Panthers, we had 11 full-time staff, and probably 3 of those were qualified for their job. When I left, we had 56 working full-time in rugby league. You saw the growth of it. And that's pretty much commonplace everywhere now. Everyone's building centres of excellence, and everyone's building academy programs. It's great for the game. The blueprint now. It's great for the game.
Is it true you almost signed JT at one point? Is that true? I don't hear about that.
Yep.
Oh, it is true?
Yep.
What happened there? And what year was this?
Well, I signed
Sowie?
Jamie Soward and Peter Wallace.
That's right, 2014.
2014, yeah. Yeah, so, in between 13 and 14. I offered JT a contract you couldn't jump over.
Well, we demanded it back then. Why did he turn it down? What reason did he give you?
He didn't, really. It's a long story. I don't want to talk out of school, but he was very, very, put it this way, I'll say he was extremely tempted, and it almost came to reality. But in the end, he stayed at Townsville, which was great for the Cowboys.
Great for him as well, won a premiership.
They went on to win a premiership, and would have been great days, would have been, but he would have been great for our club and where our club was at that time. I jokingly say now, well, you probably wouldn't have got a kick at goal once Nathan got to come along. So, we made a big play for him at that time, massive play.
There was another story I'd love for you to share. It's around Wendell Sailor.
That's my talent scout, Jimmy Jones. That's back in the early 90s. Yeah. Jimmy Jones, I played with Jimmy. Jimmy was from, he was a country boy and came to play with the Panthers in 1980. Went back to play with the Canberra Raiders and started off with Tim Sheens down at the Canberra Raiders doing a little bit of talent scouting. When I got the job at Panthers in 1990, Jimmy had married John Cartwright's sister, Mary Cartwright.
Okay.
And they were coming back to live in Sydney. I said, come and work for us, come and be. So Jimmy was our talent scout. And he was very good at it. Loved the country kids, I said, Jimmy, I said, we need some wingers, man. I need a big winger. I said, that competition they ran up in Queensland, the Confraternity Shield, I said, there was a big competition up in Queensland. I said, can you go up, find us a big, strong, fast winger, So Jimmy come back after the weekend. I had to pay his way. We had no money. So Jimmy comes back after the weekend. He said, I said, what'd you find, Jimmy? He said, I found two. He said, yeah. He said, a kid called Butch Fat Nowner and a kid called Wendell Sailor. I said, well, Jimmy, we've only got enough money for one, mate. Which one do you like? He said, I really like Butch. Now, Butch was a good player.
Yeah.
Butch was a good player. 12 months later, Wendell was playing Origin. So Jimmy's office out at Penrith, I had a big picture of Wendell Sailor. I used to put up at his door every day. You keep taking it down.
I love that story.
It was one of his famous ones. Yeah, but I sent him up there one year. I said, we need a young halfback, mate. I need a young halfback. He said, it's a kid playing up in Queensland. He missed out on the Queensland under-17s. I think he might be all right. I said, well, go and get him. So he brought down this little Indigenous kid with his father, and they came down and we signed him up. And the kid was very shy and very quiet. Couldn't kick, couldn't pass, didn't talk.
All three things you need as a half.
I said, Jimmy, what are you doing to me, mate? We're sitting there watching this trial game out on the back oval of Penrith. We're sitting on the little hill there watching the thing. I said, Jimmy, he can't kick, he can't pass. And I said, he doesn't talk, mate. I said, what made you think he could be a halfback? And as I said that, he picked up the ball out of the scrum 10 metres out from our own line and ran 90 metres and scored a try. He said he can run. I said, righto. So we started him off in the under-23s, and he wasn't a halfback. He just wasn't a halfback, you know. So I said to Jimmy, well, we're going to have to drop him. We'll get him a game. So old Len Stacker, he used to coach the first grade at Penrith back in the 70s. He was coaching Emu Plains A grade. Mm. So I sent the kid out to Len Stacker. I said, can you give this kid a game out there? He said, what position? He said, I said, Jimmy brought him down as a halfback, mate, but I don't know. I said, he said, I've got a halfback. He said, I'll play him somewhere else. I said, righto. So he goes out to play in this A-grade game at Emu Plains. Len rings up on the Monday morning. He said, that kid you sent me? He said, yeah. He said, they couldn't lay a hand on him. He said, he scored 3 tries. I said, did he? He said, yeah. So where'd you play him? He said, I played him in the centres. I said, all right. So I said, all right, we'll keep him there, you know. So next Monday he rings up. He said, that kid, he said, yeah. He said, you've got to take him back. He said, he's too good for this grade. I said, why? He said, he scored 5 tries.
Wow. I
said, really? He said, yeah. So we brought him back. 6 weeks later, at the Sydney Football Stadium, in first grade, I replaced a bloke called Mark McGaw with a kid called Matt Singh.
Wow.
Matt Singh.
Wow.
Was the kid from Rockhampton that Jimmy had brought down to play halfback.
You're kidding.
And he never went back. He played first grade, played Origin, played for Australia. Turned out a great centre winger. Jimmy brought him down as a halfback. So I told you he could run.
That's a hell of a story.
I told you he could run. But that's just, you know, just time. And that's Jimmy with a great eye for talent, looking at a kid and finding out that he's got what it takes. Mm. Now, it's up to us to teach him to play and find out what position and what have you. But, you know, and Butch Fat Nowner was a good player too. He played first grade for the Broncos, and he didn't do so well with us. But Wendell Sailor, he went up there, he picked out Wendell Sailor. 18 months later, Wendell was playing Origin.
Remarkable story. Love it.
Jimmy, you know, a lot of those great Panther players there, Jimmy found them in the bush and country towns and junior leagues and all that sort of thing. Did a great job.
Works in the shadows, Jimmy. Not many people know what he does.
Yeah. Heart and soul.
Your time with the Warriors, like you obviously went down. I think it was during COVID. You were doing a bit of a consulting role as well there. Yeah,
the Warriors thing was interesting. We sort of 2020 was when COVID hit Australia.
Yeah. And lockdown. And 21 was the one.
Yeah, the game went through a bit of a transition. Peter V'landys came in as a chairman.
That's right.
And COVID exposed a few issues with the game, especially financially, once the game was stopped. And it looked as though it wasn't going to get back up and running, and that would have created a huge problem for the game if they weren't able to get money back into the game, if they weren't able to resume the competition. So I wrote a couple of columns at that time about, you know, COVID was probably the heart attack the game needed. You know, and because it's exposed a number of the issues that we had in the game. And
what were the issues?
Financial, administrative, leadership, which, you know, at that time, Peter V'landys was the right man in the right place to fix all that. But it sort of opened up also some comment around the international game, where the international game was going, who was running the international game, which I felt should have been run by the NRL if we were going to take advantage of Pacific Islands. And we needed to invest in New Zealand and the Pacific Islands and invest in the international game. And Peter took all that on board, and he got me to present to the Commission a couple of times. And from that, I had approaches from the Auckland Rugby League, the New Zealand Rugby League, and the Warriors, because they were obviously interested in, what I had to say and where the game was at that time. And that sort of culminated in me doing a consultancy there with the Warriors. They had a new owner by the name of Mark Robinson and a new CEO by the name of Cameron George.
Yep.
Great people, great people. Warriors privately owned, obviously, by Mark's family. And they were just looking for some advice and guidance around how they build their club and where they go from there. One of the primary things was getting them back in the junior rep competitions, which had sort of closed down during COVID, and developing their own development pathways, but also with the game, the NRL investing in pathways in New Zealand, et cetera, as well. So, and all that came to fruition. Unfortunately, COVID had a couple of goes, like it sort of re-emerged again, and I couldn't get to New Zealand the way I wanted. And so I felt a little bit guilty, sort of being paid for this consultancy, but not really being able to get to the job. They were up at Tamworth, they were up at Terrigal. I was driving up, to go up and watch them train, but I really wasn't contributing a lot to them. Behind the scenes, we were doing some work with the NRL about them getting back in the pathways programs and setting up some academy programs over there at the Warriors, and they've done extremely well with all of that now. They're in all those competitions. They're doing extremely well. First grade side's doing fabulously. Mark Robinson is an extraordinary man, and Cameron George is a really good operator, so they're in great hands.
You got a job that carries a lot of burden. Was there one decision that was one of the toughest that stands out for you that you've had to make?
They're all tough. They're tough. The ones that telling kids, look, mate, you're not going to make it. Go and get a job. Or you're not going to make it here. You might make it somewhere else, but you're not going to make it here. Sometimes we help them. We get them to other clubs or other environments, and sometimes it's just not going to work out for them at your club, but it can work out somewhere else. Sometimes your club's not the right club for them, or you're strong in their position and then they're not getting the opportunity they need, or maybe they need to change their attitude and be in a different environment, but they're things that we sort of learn over a period of time. And we're pretty honest with the players in those sort of assessments. There's no, that's your job. Your job's to make big decisions, and some you get right, some you don't, but you do it with all good intention and you do it with all information available at the time.
What's been your funniest interaction you've had with player, coach, whoever? Just one that stands out. You would have had plenty.
You talk about the conversation. Like you got to drop a player. Or something. I remember when I was playing for Canterbury, Warren Ryan was the coach. I was pretty close to Warren, and he was going to drop me. I knew he was. I hadn't gone that good, So we're at the Belmore Hotel on the Tuesday night. And he walked over to me and he gave me a beer. He said, "You're intelligent, you work it out." That's how he dropped me. So I thought it was a really good way to do it.
Very unorthodox, that. Far out, straight
smart.
To the point.
You're smart, you work it out, he said.
And, mate, obviously, like I said before, you've been in the game for many, many years now. Once the time's up, how do you want to reflect back on your legacy you left in the game?
I hope I helped the people. I hope that, I did my best and I helped people to the best of my ability. That's about all you can do. I've got some great friendships out of it, and that's the most important thing.
Gussie, thanks so much for coming on the show, mate. It's always good to see
Josh,
you, mate.
the podcaster.
You never know, mate. You probably have your own podcast here soon. You never know.
I don't know.
Jeez.